FSH levels,
That's crazy.
and let me just warn you, some books will have FSH higher than LH here, and some charts will show LH higher. So just read the chart the way it is for some of those homework components as far as which is higher or which is lower. But FSH starts to rise just prior to menses. And then as estrogen levels are increasing, it starts to drop, and with the spike in GnRH, it will rise a little bit too. LH stays pretty level, but it spikes at ovulation. On your exam next week, which is a week from today, you do not need to be able to diagram these charts, but you need to be able to read them. So if I have a diagram like this, and I always do, you need to tell me which is LH and which is FSH. And I always say this, and I always have 4 or 5 students that miss it. Okay, and I'm always going, but I told them this was going to be on the test. So prove me wrong this semester, okay? I hate to mark off things when I said this will be on the test. So we see that change in LH and FSH. How do you know which is which? The highest peak
LH.
is LH. All right? So in response to this early FSH rising, we see the primary follicle changing to a secondary follicle and an antral follicle. And with increasing amount of follicular cells, we see an increasing amount of estrogen. Until it reaches, a little bit more dramatic than that. Until it reaches its moderate peak, and that has a positive feedback because within 24 hours of this peak of estrogen, we see the peak of LH in ovulation. Then it falls and rises slightly again. Whoops, that was too much. Remember, the theca interna cells are producing the progesterone. They're not active until after ovulation, so we really don't see an effective amount of them. And then about 5 days, 4 to 5 days before menses starts, progesterone drops, and that's what causes menstruation. That's what causes constriction of the spiral arteries and the separation of the stratum functionalis from the stratum basalis.
5 days before menses?
Pardon?
Stops 5 days before menses, possibly?
Yeah. Well, it drops. It doesn't completely stop, but it starts to drop right here. So it's about day 23, 20, 28 days, 23, 24. There is, we'll talk about contraception on Tuesday next week, in addition to a little bit right now. There is well, when we talk about contraception, that's stopping pregnancy, okay? You can either prevent it or you can end it. There's different forms of contraception. So you can keep the egg from being even ovulated with birth control pills. Okay? You can allow the egg to be ovulated, but keep the sperm and the egg from meeting by not even having intercourse, or by using a condom or a diaphragm. Or you can allow them to meet and allow the sperm to penetrate the egg and fertilize it, but not implant, by using an intrauterine device. Or if it was unplanned intercourse, Plan B pills, which can, the morning after type of thing, which depending on where you are in your cycle might prevent ovulation, or if ovulation has already occurred, prevent implantation. Or if implantation has already occurred, you can have an abortion, a medical abortion, which is scraping like a DNC, scraping the stratum functionalis and the embryo, the implanted embryo off, or a chemical abortion, which is utilizing progesterone receptors. This was developed in France, so it's sometimes known as the French abortion pill, RU486. That works by blocking progesterone receptors. It doesn't prevent fertilization, doesn't prevent ovulation, doesn't prevent implantation. So after that's already occurred and a woman is determined that she's pregnant, RU486 will bind in the stratum functionalis to the spiral arteries and block progesterone from binding. It's as if the corpus luteum was stopped from making progesterone. So it's still there in the bloodstream, but it's not able to bind to its receptors. So the effect is the same. It causes menses, causes the blood vessels to constrict, and the tissue of the stratum functionalis to die, and the stratum functionalis to separate from the stratum basalis, and in that separation takes with it the implanted embryo. Okay? So there's all those stages, and depending on your personal beliefs, you can choose the one that works the best for you and your partner. So, in the Catholic religion, interfering chemically with whether an egg is released or not is not accepted by the leaders. There's a lot of Catholic individuals that will do that, okay? But so the only accepted course of preventing fertilization and implantation is the rhythm method, or complete not having intercourse at all. But if you're going to have intercourse, use the rhythm method and stop during the period where you might be fertile. So again, we'll talk about some of those methods so that you can make your own choices based on your own personal beliefs. All right, so I'm going to stop there, and tomorrow we will pick up fertilization and implantation